right, and we are finally here, fellas. After all the ups and downs we've seen throughout this football season and how much I ended up getting wrong in the end, which that's its own entirely different video, the Super Bowl is finally here after a very long season, and we have the match ready to go. Now, even though not many of these fans are excited about the outcomes that happened during the AFC and NFC title games earlier, we are literally seeing greatness from two quarterbacks leading their respective teams to the big dance. And I'm all here for it, as I'll break down this upcoming game and give my 2 cents about it. So, let's talk about it. Now, let's get one of the biggest takeaways out of the way. Patrick Mahomes is still by far the best quarterback in the NFL, and even demonstrated that again against America's last hope. The Ravens. Having a pretty dominant game, completing 30 passes for 39 for 240 yards and a touchdown, which essentially set the tone for the remainder of the game, as Pat and the offense would march down the field against arguably the best defense in the playoffs, and would throw a dimer to the greatest receiver in the playoffs, Travis Kelce. Kelce would prove that after surpassing the GOAT, Jerry Rice, for the all-time receptions record in playoffs history, especially after having a monster day with 11 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown, showing that karma is really the guy on the Chiefs.
I want to be in the NFL.
Pro football? Come on, kid. They'll snap you like a twig.
But that's my dream.
You ready to go, Swift? You ready to go? I'm ready. You ready?
You ready to go?
You ready?
Score a touchdown.
That's all I can hear.
You just hit me.
Ravens, though, would try and respond quickly with their own touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers for a whopping 30 yards. But that was about it for Baltimore, as the Ravens offense would then struggle for the rest of the game against a really well-played defensive approach to the game by defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. During the week leading up to this game, everyone was saying how the Ravens offense was going to cruise through this defense, with the MVP of the regular season, Lamar Jackson, finally being able to show everyone what he can do in the big game. Though, Kansas City's secondary seemed to literally lock down OBJ and Zay Flowers for a majority of the game, making Lamar have to catch his own pass. Though, throughout the game, the Chiefs' defense would also pressure the offensive line and blitz Lamar Jackson while containing him for a majority of the game, recording 4 sacks, a key forced fumble, and a game-winning pick that was thrown into triple coverage for that defense to help seal the game for the Chiefs. This whole season, though, it's felt like the Chiefs against the world, even after a rough start to the year with everyone dropping passes, including Kadarius Toney, who leads the team in drop passes, all the way to the Taylor Swift hate. Even with all that, Pat still had an above-average year, even though it's a down year, and even like Aaron Rodgers has said.
I sometimes laugh when people talk about, down years for me, because a lot of times down years for me are career years for most quarterbacks.
The thing is, though, he did throw for a little over 4,100 yards, which is the lowest since the year he won the Super Bowl against the Niners during the 2019-2020 season, when he threw for 4,031 yards and 26 touchdowns, which is one less than this season. And yes, I know the Chiefs have had an issue with dropping passes, specifically Toney, which definitely affected the regular season numbers. But my point is that it doesn't matter what Mahomes does during the regular season. He makes his team better as a whole and elevates them in the biggest moments to play as well as they do on a regular basis, and especially in the playoffs, after leading the Kansas City Chiefs to 6 straight AFC title games and going to his 4th Super Bowl. The NFC Championship game later on, after the Chiefs won, featured another hero versus villain type storyline where essentially everyone and their mamas wanted the Detroit Lions to defeat the Mr. Irrelevant-led 49ers. What I mean by this is that there is so much hate surrounding Brock Purdy and his success during his second season as a starter that everyone essentially wanted him to fail as a player because he has, a star-littered roster around him and he's doing well as the quarterback for that team? I don't really get it, because he honestly has an equal story to the Detroit Lions, as there has never been a Mr. Irrelevant player to be this relevant as Brock Purdy and have nearly as much success as he's had over the last 2 seasons, especially this season, when he is by far an MVP frontrunner, being 5th in passing yards, 3rd in passing touchdowns, and leading the league in quarterback ratings, along with being in the Super Bowl his second year. And I'm a frickin' Seahawks fan saying all this too. Anyways, back to the game, where Detroit actually looked like that they were going to throw off the red-hot 49ers, as wide receiver Jameson Williams started off the game by topping off the first drive with a 42-yard end around for the touchdown, as well as running back David Montgomery punching it in to quickly start the game 14-0. San Francisco would try and score with Christian McCaffrey, their workhorse, to make things closer, but Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions had other plans, as he had a 15-yard run to extend the lead 21-7 right before halftime. Though I definitely say the reason for this collapse begins with the final seconds of the first half. Dan Campbell and the Lions offense was in scoring position with about 24 seconds left. They almost used the entire clock only to get about 4 yards, as there was a short completion and a stuffed run play, which put Dan Campbell in an interesting 4th and 3 situation. Now, I feel like Dan Campbell probably should have went for this to try and make the score 28-7 because he was on the 3-yard line, but also due to the fact that this is DC's specialty by going for it on 4th down, as the Lions were second in 4th down conversions during the regular season with about 52% successful rate. Though he did go for it later on in the game, but I feel like if they were to go for it and succeed in that position, we could be looking at a Lions facing the Chiefs instead, due to what happened at the end of the game. Because during the second half, the Lions would end up struggling massively, as the Niners seemed to elevate their play to a significant level, with the star-studded defense essentially locking down the Lions offense throughout the rest of the game. Nick Bosa would get 2 sacks against Goff, as well as the defense getting a huge fumble from Jahmyr Gibbs in the third quarter. Also in the second half, Brock Purdy came out there and became the guy that we've seen all year, putting his offense in situations so the rest of the team could succeed. A couple examples of this is the first touchdown in the second half, when Brock Purdy threw the 6-yard touchdown to Brandon Ayuk, or when Purdy would march down the field for Elijah Mitchell to punch it in for the score, or whenever Brock Purdy would pull a Peyton Manning-esque play, showing off his sneaky speed to get huge gains and setting up scores for Christian McCaffrey. Maybe if DC made some better decisions, Detroit would be making history, but you could literally say that about any coach in the NFL any given week. It's a wild sport like that. That's why we love the NFL. But San Francisco just made the right adjustments and called a great second half for both the offense and the defense to play lights out championship football and to push them into the Super Bowl. That being said, this year's Super Bowl again is looking to be hopefully one of the better ones, as they're hosting the 2 best teams in the NFL, with both teams showing that, whether that's San Francisco's stacked roster pulling off one of the biggest NFC comebacks ever with Brock Purdy champion Chiefs, as they clearly showed they can handle a team like Baltimore, who arguably had a better defense than San Francisco in these playoffs. Now, while I think that this could potentially be one of the better Super Bowls, there is a good possibility that this could be another Kansas City versus Tampa Bay situation, where the 49ers defense could be too much for the offensive line for Kansas City, as they do probably have the best defensive line in the league by far talent-wise, but also the rest of the defense is so stacked. But Patrick Mahomes has done an amazing job this season, not being touched for a good reason, and that's his offensive line. So we'll see how the trenches fare out for this game, especially for the fact that Joe Thuney is questionable for the Super Bowl. So my final pick for this game, I've been leaning both sides on this. It's kind of been a tough decision, but I'm definitely leaning more towards Kansas City for a couple reasons. First, they obviously have the best quarterback tight end or wide receiver duo, however you want to call Travis Kelce, but they just not only broke Tom Brady and Gronk's record in the playoffs, but also Travis just broke Jerry Rice's record. And for number 2, I predicted that this would happen for the Kansas City Chiefs over the summer, so I would like to be right about something, especially for the fact of how my Seattle Seahawks played this season after I was hyping them up so much. But yeah, for the final score of the game, I'll say Kansas City wins 31-24, with Patrick Mahomes being the Super Bowl MVP along with his 3rd championship ring, inching him closer for us to start having the GOAT conversation. Now we have made it to the end of the video, but not only the video, the end of this NFL football season, and I hope you guys also enjoyed it as well, the highs, the lows, everything about it. Look out for new content and new videos in the future involving this NFL offseason, but as well as the UFL, as they're kicking off their new season March 30th. So keep an eye out for those videos. Have a great weekend, and of course, have a good one.